Don't say that word at the beginning of Insta.
It wasn't live yet.
Well, that's what you think, because there is a bit of a delay, I noticed.
Everyone shout at Dark Hour for saying the N-word, for God's sake.
How's everybody doing?
Not watching Acolyte, so better right now.
Oh, wait, you're not watching it?
No, I'm not watching it, like physically watching it right this moment.
Oh, yeah. Once again, everybody.
I wrote videos and didn't even watch the show. It's fantastic.
God, it's more fraudulent than anything Disney's putting out that's Star Wars right now, anyway. But yeah, we only have one guest again this week, everybody. We are your hosts, Movie Cynic and Little Platoon, and the only guest we have today that was confirmed, Dark Hour. Thanks for joining us, man.
It was really close to 5,000 subs. So
he's really close to 5,000 subs. So yeah. I'll drop a reminder every 30 minutes because people will be coming in and out of the chat. So, and yeah, I saw that everyone was blaming me for being late. It wasn't me. It was Platoon.
Oh, it's always me. I'm late for everything. Fashionably late, but late nonetheless.
I have the DM to back it up.
Can confirm.
Disrespect will leak.
And it's funny because I was the one who was saying like, "Hey, we should back it. I might be a little late." And I was about 15 minutes ahead of schedule today. Yeah.
I was the first one in the green room though, so feel good about that.
Well, you make the green room, you have to be the first one to be in.
Yeah, well, it's the blue room. It's the blue room. Yeah, we share a StreamYard with Mr. Brown, and he has the brown room.
That's a real shitty room.
It's a shitty room. But to start off, I figured we would talk about the Acolyte, since this show is perpetually a week behind, since we do it on Mondays and the show drops a new episode on Tuesdays. So, you know, everyone's already had their fill, and I'm sure Platoon has too, because he's always on hours-long streams talking about it. But we got to do it again. So episode 5 follows up exactly where 4 left off, with the zipperhead guy, or as I like to call him, Darth Gimp, showing up to kick everyone's ass.
I couldn't decide on one name, so I just used them all. I just went through like a Rolodex of names in my video. You'll see when it comes out.
Yeah, I just refer to him as Darth Gimp pretty much the entire time.
I changed his name probably about 4 times, but that's like when he's not. So when he's just himself, then when he has the mask, when he takes the mask off, I change it each time to match what's going on with his character at the time.
Yeah, so when this episode dropped, I was seeing Twitter, social media kind of light up that it was, you know, the show is the worst piece of Star Wars material that's been out in, I don't know. It's arguable, but I think it's, you know, the Marvels or She-Hulk level of Star Wars. But everyone was saying that this episode was the best of the, you know, the best of the worst, essentially. But I totally disagree. Like when I watched it Thursday, so it was like a couple days behind. I honestly thought that this was second only to episode 3 in how bad it was. Like I walked away thinking that everyone's just fooled by getting what they wanted in that finally, with like shiny lightsabers or something.
It shows a contra reputation. Everyone, the line is, "Oh, Star Wars fans are impossible to please," and that's not true. If you just wave lightsabers around, lots of people are very pleased indeed, and they stop paying attention. That's all you need to do. More lightsabers waving around. I keep being told that that's all Star Wars is, after all, lasers and lightsabers. So I think, to be honest, I don't know how many people were really tricked by this one, but quite a few people did think it was better, even the best of the bunch of the episodes so far. But I'm probably with you. I very much disagree with that. That the closer you look, the worse it gets, and the more that happens, the more that breaks. It's just that it's less boring than episode 3 because stuff happens.
Yeah,
sorry, episode 4 because stuff happens, but because stuff happens, it goes wrong.
It has excessively bad pacing when you combine it with episode 4. And one thing that I point out in my video is that you have this huge gap of open space in the middle of episode 4, and then episode 5 is basically just nonstop action sequences, regardless of whether or not they make sense, because they're like trying to have conversations in the middle of it, but they're very particulated conversations. And if they would have paced it out over those 2 episodes a little bit better, use that 15-20 minutes of dead space in the middle of episode 4, you could have actually had a pretty solid pacing level. And they just no, I don't even understand why they sat down and were like, we need to have a 15-minute long walking sequence, and then in the next episode we're just not going to let anybody have a chance to speak.
Especially because the same batch of writers wrote both episodes, and they wrote them back to back, and they wrote them as though they were joined together, and they were split up after the fact. Now, I don't know at what point they were told where the split had to be, because the writers at CK Keachel said that for reasons, the second one had to be the longer one. But I'm assuming you didn't find out at the last second that you were going to have to split them and where you had to split them. So it was really on the writers to actually balance this stuff out. You have a whole, basically endless forest to space your fight scene out in. You can do that over a long period of time. You don't have to have like half an hour of fuck all happening and then half an hour of so much stuff happening that you stop paying attention to exactly what's supposed to be happening. None of the motives are in place. None of the character decisions make sense. The number of characters who just teleport in and out of existence is mad. The fact that the only conversations that really happen are just because Smilo decides for a period of 5 minutes that he doesn't want to kill everyone, long enough to tell them that he wants to kill them all, and then the fight starts again. It's just, this is just silly. What is happening? This is not a good episode. It's not even the best of the worst episodes. It's just a bad episode again.
Yeah, like episode 3, I laughed because it was so bad a couple times. I even had to drop a couple clips in my review of episodes 4 and 5 because I was just going back to it. I did a fucking cover song of Power of Many on the guitar, on the electric guitar.
That is going to be the gift that keeps on giving forever, is that quote.
Yeah. That's what episode 3 had. Like this one, like Osha, she's witnessing, you know, Darth fucking Zipperface murder all kinds of Jedi. And that's clearly what he's up to. He's trying to kill people. And as she's walking away, like later on, she stops and has this epiphany and it's like, he's going to kill everybody. It's like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, why are you saying this? And like, she actively decides to run away. And then halfway through the episode, she decides he's going to kill everyone. We have to do something. And I just hate that type of shit. And the dialogue makes it's just filler. That's how I felt about the dialogue a majority of the time throughout this show so far, is that I think I said it in my review that like people just say shit in this show because it seems like in this situation in a movie, the writer saw someone say something like this before. And so that's where he drops it, or she drops it.
Yeah, I mean, in this case, that happened twice, I think, in the final exchange between May and Osha, who both spot their motivations completely by this point. But Osha actually says, they turned you against me, which obviously the writers have heard in a Star Wars thing before. You turned her against me. Osha does the, you've done that yourself line, which is, it's just like word for word the same. They are just pinching things they've heard and seen elsewhere and sticking them in at some point. There are 4 occasions when I actually made a mistake in my video. I think I said there are 2 occasions when they're running away from the battle and Osha stops and says, we have to go back. And then they don't go back. There are 4 times that happens, not 2. And it's just like, we didn't have to go back the last 3 times. Why are you going back the 4th time? They're only doing this because it's not his time to die yet. And so they have to keep him away, but they haven't actually got a reason to keep him away. So fuck it. I guess anything will do.
One of my favorite things that gets lost is, so they're going through the woods. He turns on his lightsaber. You know, they remind you that the murder moths exist from episode 4, that they're attracted to light. And they go back and she uses Pip, who's like, you know, he didn't deserve that. I actually point that out, that he's been totally cool the whole time with everything, all the dumb bullshit. And she's just like, nope, I'm going to sacrifice you. My best friend, little droid. And she slaps it on Darth Dental Pun's fucking back. And all the moths attack him. But like the whole time this battle was going on, you have all these lightsabers going off and none of them bothered to go to the light of any of those lightsabers.
Yep.
So it's just another character set of I'm going very blurry. It's another thing that it doesn't exist. You have Soul, who multiple times gets left back, and it's like, okay, he's doing nothing, and all of a sudden he's here. It's a case of like the characters, or whatever you want to call the plot device, murder moths, don't exist until they're needed and on screen.
Yeah, and when you were mentioning the pacing, I actually think in this episode things are happening and they're moving so fast that I'm like, people not stopping to realize like how stupid this is. Like earlier in that episode, I believe they had this is where they were showing that the lightsabers themselves attract the. I just Skimar looks like an Asian person.
Wait, what did that say? An Asian movie version?
That they were showing that the lightsaber itself will attract those. Well, I don't know. They're the bugs. What did you call them?
Murder moths.
Murder moths. But yeah, the lightsabers themselves attract them, and they were just moving slowly too. And during this entire episode, they're being swung around like 20-25 minutes of lightsaber battles. But as soon as the droid's light omits anything, they just suddenly attack him. And it's because the story needed it to happen at that moment, and
but
that's how you can describe a lot.
Yeah, it happens because that's what the script says, and that's the only reason. But like, the only reason she has to sacrifice Pip is to get the murder moths. The only reason she wants the murder moths is so they can kill Smilo. But she stops Sol killing Smilo before any of this happens. He's about to do it, and she says, "Sol, no." I was like, but why? Why don't you? But again, that's another example of, well, because the script says. Apparently, no, it's against the Jedi way to swiftly and humanely decapitate someone who's just murdered a dozen Jedi. But leaving them to get buggered to death by actual moths in the sky, that's fine. That's way better. None of that makes any sense.
The only thing I could think of is that there was a line that got cut or someone didn't think of it where it was like, the Jedi don't execute people, but I'm not a Jedi, or something like that. It just seems like that should have been right there, and they just axed it or never bothered to put it in. It would have been super cliche, but at least it would have made a little bit more sense.
But even then, because he's got opportunities when he's caught. Well, again, it's still broken because the only reason he's in this position is because Smilo briefly decides he doesn't want to kill everyone. But at some point, God, I'm so tired. Sol does like punch him when he loses his lightsaber, and then he captures him, and he has his lightsaber against his throat. Even if you did want to play the, well, we're a Jedi and murdering people in cold blood is against the Jedi code, at least put fucking cuffs on him. Because we know you carry those around because Jackie was trying to put them on Fannie Mae the entire episode for no fucking reason. So, we'll just cuff him or cut his hands off, do something. But he just steps back. It's like, well, okay, fine, I'm going to let you go. And then obviously Smilo grabs his lightsaber again. So he goes from being unarmed to armed, which is what people who want to kill you generally do if you give them a chance. He just snapped a guy's neck with his bare hands. He's a combatant. He's not an unarmed civilian. I think you're allowed to kill the fucker.
That you mentioned the scene with Padawan X-23, by the way. Her trying to arrest May has got to be one of the dumbest scenes I've ever seen in my life. She decides to read the whatever their version of the Miranda rights are. Yeah, it's the Jedi Miranda rights before she actually gets the handcuffs on her, and it's like, you can do it after the fact. And it just that scene is so dragged out, and the hand combat. I know that there's a huge this lightsaber combat's not good. Some people say it is. Some people, I lean more towards that it was pretty good, but it's automatically made better looking by the hand-to-hand combat looks terrible between those two, and that whole sequence just made no sense at all. Especially because in fact then they try to show her as this like hyper competent person in the next scene, but she doesn't even understand the concept of how you would detain somebody.
Well, what's cool about her too is she puts up the best fight against this guy. He takes on like 4 or 5 Jedi at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah, all the red shirt Jedi that nobody even knows their names. Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
kills a bunch of them. But she puts up the best fight against him out of everyone.
They missed a golden opportunity for another thing too, because it shows that he has the hidden second blade, which I think is actually probably the coolest thing about him. Like, of the few things that are cool, like I thought that was cool that his lightsaber was pretty unique. But she went not Akimbo, Florentine is when you fight with 2 swords. She went Florentine, and then he does in a little while later. As they've never really done 2 sabers versus 2 sabers before. I thought that they kind of missed a golden opportunity for her to have the upper hand because of there being 2 sabers, and him being like, oh, well, I got 2 too, bitch. And
yeah, that could have added a little spice there.
Yeah.
And that's one of my frustrations with the choreography. I think I pointed this out in my video, and I think I pointed it out on EFAP, and I probably pointed out on about 15,000 other streams as well, because I've lost track of how many I've been on recently. But this idea that, yeah, it's impressive choreography because it looks good from a distance.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's all choreography means and is supposed to be, which is really frustrating. I actually went back and I lost quite a lot of time while editing because I was just going back looking through all the interviews with Nick Gillard, who does the choreography for the prequels. And like, this is why they fight the way they do. This is the story that you're trying to tell. This is what you're trying to bring out of their character. The amount of thought and care and attention that goes into that sort of thing, because choreography, like ballet dancing, is supposed to convey a point. It's supposed to be a narrative medium. It's not just your physical technique and your strength and how quickly you can twirl a lightsaber around through some trees, which makes it look flashy. The fact that a Padawan who's been shown training with fucking kendo sticks because she can't be trusted with a lightsaber, the last episode, is now better than 15 Jedi Knights using actual lightsabers against the Sith doesn't tell you anything about her character. The fact that the fight against the rest of the Jedi only goes the way it does because they teleport other important characters out of the scene, and then showing them being really good. So that just tells you that if Sol hadn't just disappeared for no reason, and if Jackie hadn't disappeared for no reason, that fight would have gone very differently. But they had to get them out of the way because, again, the script needed it to happen that way. It's really, really shallow, I think, to look at that and say, well, okay, because it's really fast and some of the individual fighting moves look well performed, it's good choreography. It's not at all. And even then, I tend to side on the view that the camera is actually so close quite a lot of the time that you don't even really get the full sense of how technically proficient they are, because you don't get a very clear view of it. Either they're flashing from a distance through trees in the dark, which makes it look cool, or it's really, really close and it's like shaky cam, which makes it look busy. But you don't really get too many opportunities to say, well, that is actually good technique. I'm sure there is good technique, but it's not as well shot as it might otherwise have been, besides telling you nothing about who's involved.
There are a couple of very good shots, and in reality, I think they're like 4 or 5 seconds long a piece, and that kind of, I don't know, I guess in that sense, that's where I left thinking, I'm like, well, at least that was kind of cool. Because I saw some people complaining about, like, I don't know, his fighting style or whatever. It's like the brutality of it. I don't mind that at all. It was actually, as a more passive Star Wars fan, or as you know, a more casual one anyway, that is more interesting to me. So like the section where he the part that I didn't like, where he headbutts the lightsaber and stuff like that, all visually does look really good. That's more of a mid shot. It's not too close. Like when you're talking about too close, I always think of fighting scenes directed by Christopher Nolan, and like those are way too tight and like way too close. I didn't feel.
Or the Bourne movies have that problem too.
Those like really tight, shaky cam fight scenes that like completely negate any of the specialness that, or all of the hard work from the choreographers that put time and effort into that.
Yeah, generally the choreography gets lost in the cinematography at that point because you can't actually see what's going on. It's been
And even then, so like the couple of bits that I did quite like, I liked the way that Smilo kills Jackie and kills Ewan. Not just because I'm bored of the show and I want everyone to die, but because it does. That's sort of the only two instances where the choreography and the fight style does tell you something about the character. Because you prior to that, you have Ewan saying, "Oh, he doesn't obey the rules of combat," and say, "Well, you did have to tell us that because you've not shown us it at all."
Right, we don't know that.
We don't know what that is. And it's like, oh, and he gets in your head. It's like, but we haven't seen that either. Because why isn't he doing it? And how can he? If his helmet stops other people getting in his head, how does he get out? But that's beside. Yeah, that's another problem. But the fact that he's got the sneaky hidden blades. He doesn't give a shit about how he kills people. He is prepared to kill people brutally hand to hand. Does tell you something about who he is and like how amoral he is. But that's still undermined by the fact that, for the preceding fight, you've got Jackie running around punching him in the face with the hilt of a lightsaber and then scurrying around like a little midget kicking his legs when she should be stabbing him. And you've got Sol, who's quite prepared to punch the fuck out of him as well. And you think, well, if you're allowed to do all of that, what rules of combat is he breaking by doing this? Yeah, you need to show the Jedi obeying rules in order to show that.
That's him breaking the rules of combat. He's beating them. That's
wait a minute. I'm supposed to win.
You're not allowed to win. That's the rule.
I like when he's about to kill May, and they force pull him away, and that's pretty effective for a moment. And so they don't ever use that again. I thought that was really brilliant.
He doesn't use his own force pull, which he shows. He like holds his saber out and pulls someone into the saber, and then later on he throws. Jedi. Yeah, and then he throws his saber at her later, who's not as force sensitive because she's been out of the game for so long. He could have just grabbed her and pulled her back.
Yeah, and that's the problem with this type of use of the Force is, compare that to the Force in A New Hope. And it seemed really special. It seemed, that Vader could use it at will, but it wasn't something that was gonna just lightning fast moves. And as soon as you introduce that, it's just like it reminds me of Doctor Strange so much, because I'm like, oh, the magic has no rules and no boundaries.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the fuck you can do, right? You can only use it once, apparently, unless the plot needs you to, and then you can. The mind reading thing really bothered me too. Like, so say for whatever reason, when May decides to become Saul, when May decides to become Osha and goes to help Saul up or whatever, he is clearly suspicious. And I would just feel like, even if he had some sort of principle of not using his mind reading on a civilian or whatever, in that moment, I would imagine it's totally reasonable to do that. Like, it's a hyper circumstance. So
the only reason they got to where they are is because they have refused to use it where it's reasonable. The single worst scene in the entire show now is the bit in episode 2 where they capture Timo Ezra and they arrest him, and they know that he's an accomplice in 2 murders, and they don't mind read him, and they don't sense anything coming off him either. He's not wearing the helmet, so he can't block it. Yep. We now know he's strong in the dark side, which they don't sense. They don't mind read him, even though they mind read everybody else at any given opportunity. And they let him go even though he's an accomplice to murder. And only because of every single one of these compounding instances of dumb fuckery gets you to the point in episode 5 where everybody dies. And I look at that thinking, well, I can't really feel sorry for any of you because you were dumb and that's what got you here. You died by your own stupidity. It's natural selection.
Yeah, they detained Osha in episode 1 on suspicion alone, and they didn't detain him on being an actual accomplice to...
Yeah, he was an accomplice to murder, and they're like, we'll let you off the hook here if you.
It's like, hey, it turns out he's got the get out of jail free card, so we're gonna.
But I also didn't understand May's. So in episode 4, she, I believe. Sorry, I might be getting them crossed. They're essentially the same episode anyway. But she said that she's going to turn herself into the Jedi. Osha being alive changes everything, yada, yada, yada. Where was it that she decided that wasn't the case anymore?
Fuck knows. I mean, I did tally them up. I think we're up to 14 different switches in motivation for her.
Like, just jumping back and forth.
Like several times an episode. Yeah, you can't. It's like she's the one who's the impossible to predict, but not because she's unreadable as a character, but because she's so many different characters. And like she just flicked, like, any given moment in any given episode, she will do the diametrically opposed thing to the thing she said she was going to do previously. So you're right. Episode 4 ends. She says, "Well, I'm going to hand myself into the Jedi, and I'm going to tell them who I know." Even though in the previous episode she ran away from those same Jedi, and we know that she doesn't know who she knows. And then episode 5 comes along, and Jackie goes to arrest her, and she's like, "Well, fuck handing myself into the Jedi. I'm going to kill you." It's like, well, but you just said you were going to surrender. Why are you trying to kill her? Just what? And then there's several openings that she has where she could attack Smilo because she wants to side with the Jedi now, even as a ruse, and she doesn't. She runs away. And then she wants to abandon the Jedi because her sister's the most important thing to her. And then at the end of the episode, she fucking knocks her sister out for the 4th fucking time. And it's like, well, no, the Jedi are more important to me than my sister is now. I was like, what are you as a character? You are impossible.
And I know it's been pointed out by several people, but she does reveal the only aspect of her body that is visibly different than her sister, and that's the face branding that she has, the face tattoo.
How have you not noticed how their hair smells? It looks like it's just been burned off, and she has a tattoo on her head, but he hasn't spotted that yet. And also, he wakes up, and there's his dead Padawan's body is lying next to him, and he looks at her for 2 seconds, and it's like, oh, fuck it, let's go. And then also, Smilo Ren's mask is there, and he doesn't know what that is, and that's incredibly effective, and he just leaves it.
Yeah, it just short-circuited your lightsabers.
Why would you not pick that up and take it with you? But that's because the script...
Because Smilo Ren's coming back. Exactly, because he's coming back, so he has to pick it up again. So says the script.
It's just dumb as hell. I'm pretty sure. I think I said this at the end of the video as well, because I think that the thing that will clue Smiler in the next episode, there will be like a couple of instances. Basil will start screaming, but because we've established that Yord is the only one who speaks Beaver, like it has a name.
Called
it's
it a
called
gopher.
Basil.
I didn't know what the fuck it was.
It's an otter, I think. I call it a beaver. The convenience beaver. He'll start screaming, and Squid Game will be like, "Oh, I don't speak beaver, and Yord's dead. Isn't that sad?" But what he will do is spot that May doesn't have the arm tattoo that he called out on Osha in episode 2, because that was a thing. That he comes in, he's wearing a little tank top, and he's like, "Oh, what's that?" And she's like, "Oh, I got it on a booze cruise." I'm pretty sure they'll use that. That will be the moment he looks at her, and it's like, that's odd. You don't have the tattoo, but he won't say anything, and that's what will clue him in. Not the very obvious lack of a tattoo on her actual head, but the tattoo that she will accidentally reveal, or lack thereof.
Maybe he'll try and ask her questions to trick her too. That'll be something along those lines. Can I read a few of these super chats as they're coming in? You mind?
Absolutely.
You do mind? All right. Well, sorry. TGV Monster for $2. Hi, Platoon, Cynic, and Dark Hour. Good to see you. Good to see you too. Again, because he sent the next 2 super chats in. TGV Monster once again for $5. What is it? CA4? Captain America 4. Yeah, is nearly $400 million. That's 40 Godzilla -1s. Snow White movies probably 300 million, even if they have hit it, swallowed up the next 3. Even if they have a hit, it's swallowed up by the next 3 bombs. Yeah, they also do have a hit in theaters right now because they do own Pixar. And Inside Out 2 is the first movie to hit $1 billion for the year. But is it going to be one?
It's not going to prop up
3. Yeah, like
it's not going to prop up these other flops.
Yeah. And TGV Monster again for $5. Predictions: the Sith will tell Osha about his mother in the Amazon rainforest researching spiders before she died. Maybe we'll say it's Acolyte time.
It's Sithin time.
Just do it at this point. At least that will be fun. I wouldn't mind that at all.
So I don't know if it's going to be the White Darth Maul mother or the other. I don't know the other one, but
I don't
there's
remember.
There's clearly a chain of bad guys now. You know what I mean? Like
that's my suspicion. I think there has to be one of them still involved.
Well, I mean, she mentions like he's clearly like a half brother or some bullshit.
Yeah, it's just because like, what does he say? He calls something about we. Like he looks at Osha on the floor and says something we are. How
also
amazing we are.
What fucking line? The one about the one we were mocking earlier when you're like, oh, and he can read your thoughts and stuff because they have to tell us that because we don't know.
I saw my mother do that once long ago.
Right?
Yeah. One thing that by the way, about that helmet, this is another example of, and Disney has done this with both Star Wars and Marvel, and I'm sure other things too, but the one like it comes to mind. But it's another one of those examples of a technology being introduced that would change everything for the rest, like a domino effect that would change so many other things going forward. And it's probably never going to be mentioned again after this show is over. They're not going to. It should have been implemented in every movie. There would have been, at least in the prequel trilogy, there would have been helmets to stop Jedi from reading minds because it's a technology that exists, and it's just never. It's just, oh, this was cool, let's throw it in. It's another one of those instances.
Yeah, it reminds me of Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Remember that?
That's exactly what it was.
Remember that healing technology that they could just throw on people? And they're like, we're not going to give this to anyone on Earth. Fuck that.
It's sort of the problem with the way that they reintroduce it, because it's cortosis is the one. I mean, it's never called that in the show, and I don't know if it ever will be. But
no, I don't. It's not even named in the show, is it?
It's not named in the show. I mean, I think people mostly after the fact assume that's what it is, and I'm willing to assume that is what it is. It shares some of the properties with cortosis in, say, like the games and some of the old expanded universe stuff. Though I don't think it's ever shown having the ability to resist telekinesis or whatever it is. So that's a bit weird, or telepathy even. So they've added that, but. That's always going to be the problem. If you are going to introduce a super metal like that, then you do have to be really careful about how you do it. The old expanded universe did introduce it. It was introduced before the prequels and stuff like that. So it has been concatenated into the universe before. I don't trust them ever being able to do it with equivalent care. And I think it can potentially break a huge amount of stuff. I'm generally much more keen to have that kind of thing take place after the original trilogy, because then you can say, well, technological advancements have proceeded in such a way that we've developed these new technologies, and that's okay. You still have to explain it a bit. But the show's going to have to basically say, okay, this is what it is, where it comes from, and this is why it's so incredibly rare that you will never, ever see it again. And I don't think it's going to do it.
Now, and I don't do this too often, but in Disney's defense, this has been a problem with Star Wars for a long time, introducing a lot of technologies in the prequel trilogy that didn't make sense to not exist in the eventual original trilogy. This is just a really bad example, like a really big one, because this would be something that would have been used a lot, especially when your galactic police department can literally read your mind. There would be people trying to replicate this kind of thing all over the place. So
you think, and even in the old EU, like, Palpatine keeps, well, it's sort of uncanonical, but well, it used to be canonical, but then it was sort of retconned. That's the other thing, is that we just don't know how much of this is canon anymore, and how much of it is permanently retconned to Legends. And they keep bringing bits and pieces back in, but because it's bits and pieces, it doesn't have any of the supporting work to really justify it. But like, one of the excuses was, well, of course, Palpatine wouldn't need cortosis because he doesn't expect to come around any Jedi because he killed them all. But actually, if you go back to the EU, he makes his lightsaber hilt out of, I think it's frick, which is another of these lightsaber-resistant metals. So it's like, well, he still used it, apparently, in the old EU. It's just that so that explanation doesn't hold, really. Yeah, I just rather that we didn't have it. It makes some sense in certain video game contexts, a bit like force heal as the kind of thing that you can excuse as a diegetic reason to make enemies have more hit points and things like that. You don't necessarily have to bring that into a mainline story, but they have chosen to do that. I am interested to see what explanation they'll give it, because we also need to learn where he got it from. We also need to learn how he learned to forge it, and we also need to explain why it will never appear again, probably. And again, I don't trust them to do any of this stuff, but if you're going to do it, you have to pay attention to how you do world building, and they are very bad at this sort of thing.
Well, on episode 5, Spectre Von Baron for $10 says, I posit that episode 5 is objectively the best because it has the least amount of dialogue, and the less the actors speak, the crappy dialogue, the better. They certainly do speak dialogue, though.
Yeah,
I mean that's some solid logic, though. You know, the less you hear, the you know, I'll accept that as a reason why it's the best episode.
And did you say that the writer was talking about those episodes, and that they had, like, the second one was, they had to split them up and the second one had to be longer? Like,
yeah, she said
like an actual runtime?
We wrote the two together, and for reasons, she said the second one had to be longer. Yeah.
It's literally the exact same. Like, when I watched them back, essentially back to back, it was like 26 minutes and 27 minutes. Like, of actual time, if you're excluding, you know, credits and opening credits and fucking all the 4 or 5 things they do to pad the runtime.
By putting like credits for every single language at the end. That's my favorite thing. And like it's Disney,
9 minutes long.
Yeah, Disney Plus does it for everything. Even their shorts, like their 2-3 minute shorts for like cars or something, will have like a 15-minute long credit sequence with all the languages. Oh, this, because I really care who made the Norwegian version of this. It doesn't.
I might start doing that to pad the runtime on videos. I'll just have like a really long Patreon subscriber like crawl going down, and then I'll do it like in every language under the sun as well. And then every video can be twice as long. It'll be great.
Do it for every public subscriber you have. I don't know. Any other thoughts on episode 5? I just
trying to think if there's anything we didn't touch on from it.
Yeah, I know, because it is a, you know, just as that super chat said, it's an action heavy episode, so there's not really a.
It was, so obviously my video didn't come out yet because I'm waiting until the next episode and doing those 3 as a block. It was one of the harder ones to write for, in the sense that it was so many scene shifts, so I had to keep like differentiating from each scene, like, oh, now we're back over here and now we're back over here, and I was trying to do it in a very non-repetitive way, but you can only say and we're back at a different spot in so many ways. And I don't think I've ever seen that many scene shifts that quickly in anything ever. And it started in the previous episode too, at the opening in episode 4. they had 3 scene shifts or 4 scene shifts in like 3 minutes of the prologue, and it was like bang, 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 and it was just that was essentially a preview of what was yet to come in the next episode, which is a scene shift every like minute.
Well, it was like a Mr. Beast video.
Yeah, it was. I had to, like, with my script, I had to sit down and be like, what's the best way to convey that they keep jumping from place to place, because this is it was a mess the way I had it written. It
is tricky to do. So sometimes what I'll do in that situation is just condense them. So like, rather than say blah 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 switch scene blah 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 switch scene, sometimes I'll like pick apart and just condense all of the scenes set in a particular place, write those linearly, and then say, and in the meanwhile, this has been happening. Like, there are ways you can do it. It's not easy to do. And generally speaking, if you're having that trouble in a review, that's a structural problem with the episode. What they seem to have done is looked at the way Lucas did the big set piece in the prequel trilogy and say, well, that was evidently a really good thing because George Lucas did it, and we'll copy that. And it's like, no, that was bad too. Even George Lucas looked at the Phantom Menace and the end of Phantom Menace and said, yeah, I might have gone a bit too far here. Because you've got Jar Jar, you've got the guns fighting in the field, you've got the space battle, you've got Maul v. Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, and you've got Natalie Portman and co going up to confront the Viceroy. Like, that is too much. You don't need all of this stuff. The OT doesn't do it like this. But what they seem to try and do in Acolyte 5 is to sort of marry that style. If you're going to do that, you need to show somehow that you can combine all these threads together. They are all leading to the same place. And there's a big payoff that shows you the thematic link and the story is going to tie itself together. They don't do that. They actually don't have a destination in mind for most of the individual scenes they're writing here, which is why, Jackie is fighting fighting May, but then she just ends up getting killed. And then Yord is leading Osha away, and he comes back and, oh, he's dead now. And it's like, there's no triumphant resolution to any of this. You are just doing this because you think it makes the scenes busy, and that's bad writing. Stop doing that.
The best version of what you just said is actually, I do mention at one point, I'm still writing it a little bit, but they kind of do something similar in Return of the Jedi, where everything sort of builds to the inevitable ending, but it's all offset by timing. They don't all start. There's not like a big long track of nothing, and then they all start at the exact same thing, and all the climaxes are happening at the same time. It's very much, this one starts, it hits its climax, and it goes into its falling action. Now this one is getting to its climax. Now this one starts. It's very, it rolls like a roller coaster, as opposed to this, which is essentially just like it gets up here and just tries to go the whole time.
Yeah, and like in Return of the Jedi, I'm not a huge fan of large bits of that film, and I think actually it has one too many things going on, a bit like Phantom Menace. Structurally, it's a bit flawed in that way. But at least every individual plot thread obeys like the 3-act structure of a fight, right? You have the triumphant beginning, you have the second act low point, then you have the triumphant resolution, and they all occur broadly at the same time. So that's the underpinning thematics that make multi-scene finales work. You've got, so like on Endor, you've got them successfully taking on the Imperials, then they all get captured, and then they get rescued by Chewie and the AT-ST. At the same time in space, they seem to be taking the upper hand, then they get confronted by the Star Destroyers, and they seem to be losing and everyone's dying, and then they fly into the Death Star and blow it up. And then inside the Death Star, you've got Luke, who's being noble and resisting the dark side, then he succumbs to the dark side, and then he triumphs at the end. And those things broadly parallel each other. So there's still a thematic consistency which makes those things seem logically coherent in a way that the Acolyte doesn't. There's no beginning, middle, end, first act, second act, third act to any of the Acolyte's bits. It's just, here is a plot thread, here's a plot thread, here's a plot thread. Lots of stuff happens, stuff happens. A couple of people die, I guess. The end.
And do you feel like the show is going to at least have that, though? Like, do you feel like it's had a second and third?
No,
that's the first thing. And second act so far.
We're going to get to. I have a real bad feeling we're going to get to the end of this, and there won't be a single completed arc for any character. I mean, what was Jackie's
Well, May
arc,
is the one that they're clearly desiring, like a Reva level redemption arc for a character that
I have no idea really what Disney's obsession is in the and it's not just this and not just Star Wars. They did it with some of their own other properties of making villains into heroes. I don't get it, because there's a way to do it, but it's not to just be like, oh, they were the good person all along, like which is how they always try to do it.
But she won't have a completed arc anyway, because she has too many motivations, so that you can't say, well, she began here thinking this thing, then she hits second act, and this changes her perspective. and then she comes good in third act, having, you know, realized her error, the error of her past ways. She doesn't have any of those things that you can draw on. She had 5 motivations in the first act and 6 in the second act, and she'll probably have 4 going forward. She wants to burn her sister alive. She then really likes her sister. Then she abandons her sister. And eventually, I'm sure they'll go to the point where, like, she tries to come good, or there'll be some big final battle between them or something like that. But that's not an arc, because you haven't actually had a consistent, like, direction. There's nothing you can look back on and say, that definitely pays off this. Jackie has no arc. Jackie's arc is she's introduced, and then she chats a bit, and then she dies. Yord has no arc. He's introduced, he chats a bit, and then he dies. Squid Game might have an arc in the sense that he did a bad thing. He realized it's a bad thing, and he might sacrifice himself to redeem himself. The big problem's probably going to be Osha, because Osha doesn't have any agency. We've got to episode 5, and she hasn't made a single positive affirmative decision that actually determines her course through the story. She's been pushed from event to event without having a say in any of it, including right up to the present. So I don't know what her arc's going to be, because she didn't take part in any of it, and she's the protagonist.
And all along with that doe-eyed stare too, just fucking just like that the entire time. And whether she's playing either character too.
Yeah, she plays them both identically. It's amazing.
Well, they are identical twins, but there's like literally nothing to differentiate the two besides their fucking hair.
And that's not even there anymore. They got rid of that. So
yeah.
So one thing I did think of as we were just talking. So one character I've laughed at multiple times, and it's one that I think everybody's forgotten, is that in the first episode, Yord had a Padawan, and I don't think she even had any lines. I think she just was standing there like a clipboard. She was basically a backup quarterback doing nothing. And that could have been Jackie, and that could have, like, just having these random small characters that are coming in and out and only serving single purposes could have been condensed into characters and possibly made into more fleshed out characters because of just simply removing these micro characters that don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
there's plenty of things with Jackie, but I think Jackie's the one who annoys me most, because I think she genuinely had more potential. And if you read the interviews and things like that, they seem to have had a fairly fleshed out headcanon for Jackie, and none of it made it into the actual episodes. Like, you learn from an interview that Daphne Keane played it as though she had a crush on Osha. You don't really get that at all.
I did kind of assume that, actually.
There's a couple of looks, right? But
the thing about the show is the characters are so often doing things that don't really pay off, even in the next scene, that you're like, oh, wait, their actions don't match their whatever the fuck they're doing ever. So like, I saw that look in it, but then also other times I saw other characters do things. I'm like, well, I can't tell if this is just a poorly directed show, which obviously it is, or if like this is intended here. And Jackie's looks at Osha were those instances.
But it's wasted and doesn't go anywhere, because you get that scene in episode 5 when May slashes Jackie's leg, right? That injury, by the way, will never recur again. She forgets about it in the next scene. But that causes her to cry out. That causes Osha to stop, because she hears it. And she's like, Jackie, we have to go back. And Yord's like, no, we don't. And she's like, okay, fine. But so you were trying to tell us that you cared about her, but then it doesn't influence your actions in any way. That if you actually had properly built out either the love interest or the deep friendship or whatever, or given Osha a sense of responsibility for Jackie because she knows Jackie looks up to her, then having some beat where Osha is responsible for Jackie being in this mess, or maybe Jackie jumps in to try and save Osha, and that's what gets her killed, and then Osha can react to that, because she never reacts to anybody's death. She just moves on with her life. But if you actually give her a reason, an investment to say, shit, what I did got her killed, then you can posthumously say, well, there was a relationship there. It actually impacted events. My character has clearly been moved by this, and this will cause Osha to change her mind about a particular thing. But none of that exists. It's just, you get hints that maybe there's a crush on one part because Jackie looks at her a couple of times. Osha doesn't reciprocate because Osha just doesn't act or emote at all.
Oh, she does this.
Yeah, that's uncanny. You should get the part.
Steve G226 said the show, he's a member for 1 month. The show is dumb on so many levels. Yes. Notice I said does anyone have anything to say left about this show? Because we've talked about it so much between the three of us. Yeah, and we went on for another 15 minutes ranting about this shit. Really,
yeah,
could,
I won't do it
throw
again. Don't worry. I'll
no, it's
I'll
all
let us move
good.
on.
It's all good. Well, fine. Any other words on episode 5 before we move on to the next topic here?
I mean,
no,
but there are, but nah, fuck it.
Yeah, I'm okay with moving on.
Okay. Well, shit. Now let me share my screen. I was gonna bring up, not that this is a high production value show or anything, but look, the interwebs. Captain America, its budget has gone over 36%. This is Blackton America, or Captain Falcon, as everyone has been calling him lately. But yeah, it's gone 36% over budget. It's now at between 350 and $375 million after it was already at a fucking ridiculous $275 million production. This is well, it's a guaranteed loss. They're going to have to make over $1 billion to see a return here. So it's a guaranteed loss.
Is this the one where they said they're gonna? Is this the next multiverse one where they bring like 65 billion Avengers back for cameos? Or
no,
is that
that's Secret Wars.
Yeah, that's going to be the Avengers movie, Secret Wars. This is
so
how far removed you've been from the MCU.
I know.
It feels.
I don't
really
have time
weird.
to read.
But it feels really surreal that we've gotten to a point where the MCU is an afterthought to so many other things. It was so front and center for not 10 years, but about 6 years. It was so front and center. And now we have one movie coming out this year that has anything to do with it. And these random bits.
Reshoots alone cost over $100 million reported. It is just mind blowing that they're dumping all this money. This isn't, I mean, it's clearly just to save face to the public, at least as far as investing in the movie and making sure it gets out. They're not going to Batgirl this movie, or Batwoman this movie, rather. But
they can.
They should. But I mean, think of the tax break they'd get on that.
Oh yeah, they should. I don't. But because of the structure of the way they do things, I don't think they can. It's probably already written in a way that they have one-off bullshit that they need to happen in that to go to the next movie and this, that, and the other thing. So by shit canning this one, they'd actually have to then go to the drawing board, which they hate doing because that requires that you actually plan shit out very well. They like to do the first draft plan style. That's exactly how they did it with the MCU for the end. And
this is coming out after.
They can't do that now.
This is coming out following Deadpool and Wolverine, right? Next year. I know it's next year, but
yeah, Deadpool and Wolverine comes out in like 2 weeks. So
yeah, but like
weeks, so, yeah.
Chronology as far as how they're actually releasing the movies, this will be the next one, I believe.
I think technically Deadpool 3 doesn't actually have a chronological.
Well, they're MCU movies then.
Yeah,
like you know, as far as like the Marvels is the last MCU movie, and then it'll be Deadpool.
Yeah.
The funny thing about Deadpool and Wolverine is that it's the only movie that they're releasing this year, and they are definitely using it as a buffer between the abominations that happened in 2023 and what's going to come next. Because could you imagine following the Marvels with Captain America 4? That movie probably wouldn't even make $100 million in the United States either. But if it's going to follow up what is most likely going to be the biggest movie of the year in Deadpool and Wolverine, then it has a better shot. I think that's the funny thing about the release schedule over the next 12 months and what Marvel's done in general is like they want to get the bad taste out of the audience's mouths. That's been the Marvels and everything. And so a year from now, when the next Marvel movie comes out after Deadpool and Wolverine comes out this month, like that's going to be the last thing we remember, or that most people do, because no one really watches the fucking Disney Plus shows or anything. It just dilutes the property more. But this movie's still going to absolutely bomb. just because of the fact that the budget's so high. The budget's higher than Avengers Endgame at this point.
Which is insane when you consider the fact that essentially they've gotten rid of all the high-priced actors.
Yeah, someone in chat had like an awesome list. It was oh Jesus, I'll never find it now. But like the list of current Avengers, you got Shang-Chi, Captain Marvel, Doctor Strange.
And do you even really have Captain Marvel at this
Right,
point?
and
She's like 1.5 feet out the door.
I mean, that would probably be best not to. I don't think she's a. I don't know. Judging by the box office, the last movie, I don't think she's a beloved character.
Nope.
So, when I revisited Civil War recently, I really felt like I was taking Steve and Tony for granted. Yeah, that is still. That's my personal favorite MCU movie. I liked it better than Infinity War. It was an Avengers movie on a. I know it's a globe-trotting thing, but it's as small scale as it could possibly get because it's just Civil War between the handful of Zod Lander for a sec $50. I have no idea what that's worth. Thanks.
Swedish krona.
In my opinion, Smilo is wasted in the show. Oh, we're back to fucking Acolyte. In my opinion, Smilo is wasted in the show. His character could have been interesting if the main story wasn't all over the place and Osha and May wasn't bland. I mean, yeah, there's a whole lot of ifs in there, though. A lot of things have to be corrected in order for anything out of that show to be done well.
Yeah, if it were a different show, it might be a better show. That's true. But since it isn't, it's not. I was actually just looking up as you were going through that, like, the upcoming Marvel things, because they have scale. It's kind of a relief actually looking down list.
It is a relief
how little there is.
Yeah,
yeah. Deadpool, Wolverine, that's July, isn't it? Yeah. Then Agatha is in September. Hooray!
Oh yes,
that's the one I'm really looking forward to.
Can't wait.
And then there's that's kind of it until next year, isn't it? And then you got Captain America: Brave New World. That's February.
Okay. Yeah.
Then
shit, that's February too.
Apparently, yeah.
Oh my god.
What else is February?
Well, the odds of a movie being released in February, like hitting $1 billion, it's just not
pretty slim.
I don't know. They can't possibly actually think that the movie's going to be successful. So
yeah, maybe they're just trying to hide it at this point. They're spending an extra $300 million on it and then trying to hide it. But yeah, that's a Valentine's Day release, so it's a holiday-ish, maybe. But
that worked out well for Madam Web.
Take your loved one to see Madam Web if you don't want to go out with her again. And then there's Daredevil Born Again is March next year. Thunderbolts May next year. Still don't even know what that is. Isn't that like the offshoot characters that nobody gives a fuck about?
So Thunderbolts is supposed to be essentially Thunderbolt Ross's, answer to the Avengers, and he gets a bunch of anti-heroes together to do it. I think that they're just using whatever they have left for this one. It had they tried to do something with that 7 years ago, it might have been cool, but they've all the characters they have left are things nobody even cares about. They've killed off so many of the villains.
And then it's Fantastic Four in July, Blade in November.
He was going to be in it.
Ironheart, apparently.
Oh, they're still releasing Ironheart?
It's down on this list, but it doesn't have a date attached. It just says 2025.
That was a perfectly timed question.
Yeah. I don't think we actually see that one.
No, that's probably going to get the Batgirl treatment, I think.
That will be the first MCU movie they did that to. I mean, shit, they even at the what is it called? The Inhumans, they even released that pile of shit back in the day.
Well, that was a show, though. Oh, no, sorry.
It was, but they put it in IMAX. Like the first 2 episodes, they had a special IMAX.
Yeah, I remember that they did that. As soon as I said it, no, they did have that like micro theatrical release. As literally, as
Ironheart is a TV show, isn't it? Not a movie, I thought.
Yeah, it's a TV show. They're doing Iron Wars, I believe, for a movie with
Armor Wars.
Armor Wars, right. Armor Wars. And that's going to be War Machine Rhodey, who is a Skrull.
It's also finished, isn't it, as well? Ironheart. Like, how bad does it have to be to have not released
this in a very long time? Yay!
Oh God, it is finished.
I'm sure I've read that Ironheart it's been finished for ages.
I heard that, but I didn't see it from a confirmed source, so I didn't know if it was actually done or not. That's wild. If it's really
And you put out the Marvels, and so how bad does it have to be to hide it?
I feel like it's been like a year since I was able to just randomly pull a comic off of my shelf and be like, "Hey guys, it's right here."
God, I used to have a wall. Like wall.
I have literally I have those like bookcases that like you would see at like a library that you could pull out of like that's how I have it. And they're slowly bowing in the middle. I have to like replace them.
Yeah, mine were all like since I was a little kid, I think the first thing I ever read was a comic book. Like I taught myself how to reading comic books. And I switched it up eventually because I'd only buy like floppy comics. But as we got older, they started producing omnibus like you just grabbed. And I had a wall of those. Trade, but that's that is
some of my omnis are over here. I have other ones elsewhere, but
yeah.
Depends what I'm reading at the time. But yeah, that was as soon as you mentioned Armor Wars, I was like, hey, I'm pretty certain I have that right behind me.
Yeah, I got a weak ass comic book collection at this point now. I just have like my absolute favorites of my favorite characters. So like my Batman statue, and then below that is Scott Snyder's run. Yeah, with Greg Capullo. Yeah, his entire run.
That's one of my like signed pieces that I really like is I have the first issue of that run signed by all 3 of the creators that are on the cover, which is pretty cool. So.
Yeah, that's man, I love that arc too. Maybe they'll actually
look at us talking about things that are actually better.
They're actually better. Maybe they'll end up taking Court of Owls from that arc and using it as a Batman villain eventually in a movie.
They did the animated one, which wasn't terrible.
Yeah, it was okay.
They just took they condensed it a little too much. They took a lot of stuff out of it.
Yeah, it was like 2 different Batman stories mushed together.
They do that with a lot of the animated movies, and they also try to change up the endings a little bit so that way people who read them are still a little surprised.
I know it's always touchy too, because when you see something adapted, you don't necessarily, I don't know, you don't know if you want it changed yet unless they change it and you like it. That's
somebody just said Greg Capullo is great. Greg Capullo is one of the coolest.
Capullo is my favorite artist of all time. Because I was reading Spawn when I was just a little kid, and he was penciling it. And
I'm not grabbing the Spawn compendiums; they're too big.
They are, those compendiums are.
They're up there, though. Just believe me. But Greg Capullo is one of the coolest creators I ever met. Like, he just radiates cool. It's
dude's a metalhead.
Yeah, like
it's pretty awesome. Well, as far as Captain America 4 goes, it is coming out next year on an insane budget. And no matter if everyone goes to see it that's interested,
literally everybody in the United States could buy a ticket, and it would still be a flop.
It's kind of like Indiana Jones 5 at this point. Why do you?
It is. Yeah,
like you'd be better off losing less money with what might be a worse film. Who knows? Than losing more money trying to make it better, because there are some things you just can't fix, like Indy 5, or apparently this film.
What if though? This will be a tragedy.
No, what if it's terrible?
Good? What if the movie is good? But seriously, what if the movie's good and it bombs?
Brownie just brought up something that I wanted to mention, but he beat me to it, unfortunately, was because of who's starring in the movie, they're almost guaranteeing flopping in China, because that's just the way it works.
Yeah, China doesn't like black people. Yeah. So like they're not interested.
The Chinese box office doesn't even really matter anymore. It's like that was for a while, and now people don't even, studios don't really rely on that like they did for a good decade.
And it might be a good thing in the long run. I think that decoupling is overdue, because there was that awful period of time when everyone thought, oh, China's the next big market, because we don't read history, so we don't understand what China does. So yeah, that's all to pretend that we can just make a huge market in China and that they will let us do that, as opposed to just stealing all of our technology and then cutting us out in the end, which is what they've done.
Yeah, then you went through movies are Chinese movies.
Yeah, they have their own industry now. They have learned all of the worst techniques of Hollywood, and now they are quite prepared to make shit films themselves. But that was good, because like for a long period of time, obviously one of the criteria to get things through the Chinese censors is that you have to have X amount of Chinese talent on screen, and you have to portray them in a positive light, which is why you got random Chinese people popping up in everything from The Martian to Pacific Rim 2, I think it was, in both of which
Iron
the
Man
Chinese
3.
save the day. Iron Man 3, the Chinese have to save the day. That's how we corner the Chinese market. But actually, that doesn't really work. Then there are certain cultural things that will never work in China. Unfortunately, black people are one of them. So you have to choose. It's either America or China. And that decoupling might, in the long run, at least remove one avenue for shit storytelling, because you won't have suddenly Chinamen coming in to save the day.
I think it's also fair to point out, Jesus Christ. I think it's also fair to point out that a lot of the movies that have made over $1 billion, it is a kind of artificial inflation there, because China takes like 70% of the ticket price. I could be wrong with it. But it's over 50%. It's something like wild amount.
I mean, it's all, in the end, it's all artificial inflation.
Yeah. Well, it's just to say, it's to look good. It's to make it look like, your movie made.
Realistically, if we were being completely transparent about how much money a movie actually makes, we wouldn't be using the total gross number. There would be so many factors in the way that you'd have to do versus budget, and how, like, total amount of ticket sales and all these things that actually matter in the long run, not just the final number.
Well, yeah, we just focus on the box office. I mean, eventually, everything will probably eventually make money, because it's just always out there. It's out there in perpetuity. So, DVD sales used to be the thing, but now it's, streaming rights and all the blah, blah, blah. Like, eventually things will make a profit, especially things that Disney puts out, because there's trash toys and fucking video games and all kinds of other shit that you can market and sell. So, like, that's the thing is, when a movie bombs for Disney, I don't necessarily think that it's like that's the biggest problem for them. I think the biggest problem is the downstream effects of that, of the quality of the movie. Like, if you're like, it's okay if The Little Mermaid bombs, as long as it's good, and like when people see it, it's painted in a positive light. But if it bombs and it's just horrible, the next time they see that character, it's not going to, like, you're chipping away at the specialness. I think with what's happening with Star Wars is proof that, like, fucking anything can die. Like, nothing's forever. I mean, a few years ago, I remember thinking, like, oh, maybe the MCU is along the lines of like Star Wars now, and like Lord of the Rings, and kind of, maybe like Marvel is, like, those characters can be on par as far as pop culture influence, but they can kill anything. So I think that's the biggest problem when they have these movies come out. It's like chinks in the armor, and eventually like the massive amount of money they make is from those parks, and people go to those parks because they love the characters too. They love what Disney represents. And if you just see characters that you don't like anymore, that's the problem. But yeah,
a lot of their parks have been showing like
decline.
Yeah, decline in profits, and it's you probably hit the nail on the head. Yeah, if no one is going to want to take, if a kid isn't asking to go to the park, no family is just going to go, okay, well, let's just spend an obnoxious amount of money to go to this place that the kid doesn't even want to go to.
And you've got the competition as well, because you've got Universal, which is buying up like the very, very popular properties and doing fairly good things with them. Hasn't Universal got Mario? It's got like Nintendo World. Harry Potter apparently is doing very well. So like all of these things that they're actually doing useful things with. There's another Harry Potter series coming out, and I think HBO is doing it, aren't they? So this is the stuff that people actually want to go and see, and they make a huge amount of money from. And what you're setting Harry Potter against, I don't know, Kylo Ren. The Harry Potter's winning that fight.
Yeah, the Harry Potter, that was really smart on their part, because it was when they purchased the rights to that and started building their Harry Potter land. I don't know exactly what, I guess it's like Hogwarts World or whatever. Was right when a lot of the people who read the books, watched the movies, were hitting the job market, making money, and wanting to have those experiences. That was one of the most intelligent purchases in terms of licensing I've ever seen.
And now a lot of them are of the age where they have kids, and they'll be taking the kids to see the stuff at the theme parks. And so, of course, they'll be very interested in going to see the Harry Potter attractions, whereas Disney is just, it's become moribund. It's brought up so many old things that it's failed to renew, that it's going to be outcompeted in every domain by much more popular studios doing much more popular things, and then using that to drive many more people to its very profitable theme parks, all of which are fairly newly made, as I understand it as well. So like Disney's in trouble in every single domain at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get through a few more of these super chats as they're coming in. That one Ginger Draven for $4.99. What's the that's pretty good. What's the panel's fave Roland Emmerich movie, and why is it Independence Day? Because it fucking is. Yeah, it is. Happy 4th, everyone. Hashtag BSUP is the BSUP. Yeah, that is definitely his best movie.
I should have worn my American flag T-Rex shirt. I didn't even think about what this is the closest show I'll probably be on. So.
Yeah. This would be the BSUP to celebrate America.
Yeah, that was the shirt that I wore right before my channel got monetized.
What does
the
it
next
say?
Morning, it was on when I was on for 4th of July last year. It's just a T-Rex.
It's a bad day to be British.
No, it's a T-Rex with like American flags and stuff. It's just the most over. It's the same thing.
Wait, I remember this.
And then
it's a really bad day to be British this year because our election is actually on the 4th of July. So like we're fucked doubly on this year's 4th of July. Really looking forward to it. Hooray! Yay! I might just move over to America and
somebody
celebrate
in the chat
instead.
mentioned Stargate. That's a really good Roland Emmerich movie.
Oh shit! I forgot he did that. Yeah, I was trying to think of any other good Roland Emmerich film except Independence Day.
Let me look up his like filmography because sometimes I forget like a movie or two. So
well, after Independence Day, it just becomes the generic sort of
Godzilla 1998.
Right? Oh gosh, yeah,
yeah,
Godzilla 98, 2012, Moonfall, Independence Day Resurgence. Even for some reason that they chose the man who destroys every world he sees.
Day After Tomorrow.
Day After Tomorrow, yeah. But he went from that to doing the docudrama origin story of the Stonewall marches that created the gay rights movement. They got Roland Emmerich in to direct that, which is such a weird thing. I've not seen it yet. I kind of want to see how he does big budget world destruction. Maybe he just but this is the gays flooding the entire world. It's actually the backstory to 2012 is the Pride March.
Are we only counting movies that he directed? Because Eight-Legged Freaks, he was an executive producer. I mean, come on.
Oh my God.
That's quality.
Come on now. The Day After Tomorrow was so fucking bad. I remember leaving the theater early. Once I was introduced to the CGI wolves, I got up and left.
So of just looking at his filmography, there's only like a handful I even like to begin with, but Independence Day is definitely #1. But Stargate, I liked Universal Soldier. That was the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie.
I liked that movie when I was a kid.
Yeah, it didn't age well.
It's not good now.
No, it didn't age well. But
rough, dude.
Yeah, that's pretty much The Patriot. Like I said, yeah, it's not really that many.
Yeah, that's the thing is, I don't like a lot of his movies at all, but one of his movies I love. So
I think Independence Day just came out at like the right time. It really did. That was, and it just looked so good for its time. It was that era was because it wasn't that long after like Jurassic Park. There was just the 2-3 year gap where movies were really hitting their stride with special effects. And that's probably the best one in terms of it for that era, to be honest with you. Like
they had this like lovely synthesis of practical and CGI, which sort of comes to its head around that time. Sort of, there were still some really bad instances of it, but Independence Day like does that blend really well. Like you say, Jurassic Park does that blend really well as well. And even through the 2000s, I think that they get that blend pretty much right. And then it's sort of when it becomes so advanced that you can do it easily, that's when everything goes to shit. And every Roland Emmerich film since has been shit, like really, really awfully bad.
That was Will Smith in his fucking heyday too, because in Independence Day, he had 3 one-liners in a row in one
Welcome
scene.
to Earth.
Yes. Yes, it was Welcome to Earth. Now that's what I call a close encounter.
My favorite is when he's dragging the body. My favorite is when he's dragging the body through the desert and he's like, "What the hell is that smell?" Just starts going kicking in the head.
Man, he was untouchable in the mid to late 90s. Will Smith was the fucking
it was that and Men in Black, pretty much. Those two being so close together really made him. So
because even Wild Wild West somehow managed to make
he turned down The Matrix for that. That's the crazy part. Imagine taking The Matrix too, and it would have been Independence Day and The Matrix.
When I was 12, though, I was super thankful because the fucking rodeo burger, the limited edition at Burger King, because of that movie was awesome.
The most American thing I think I've ever heard.
I've still never seen Wild Wild West because I remember vaguely when it came out and I was too young to go and see it.
It was
wanted to go and
awful.
see because the poster looked good, but I wasn't allowed to watch it.
They were trying to rely so much on it was a terrible script. It just looked bad. They were relying so much on the fact that at the time Will Smith was the biggest actor on the planet, and Selma Hayek was, I mean, she's still like the hottest actress on the planet, but she was like at that time she was hit for like really becoming well known. So they were just kind of relying on the cast to carry the load for the film, and it did not do well.
No, but the rodeo burger.
I miss fast food tie-ins.
Well,
Like,
and then the Cisco song.
oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Man, that was a wild, wild west summer for a movie that completely fucking bombed. Pretty amazing.
I mean, they did have that giant mechanical spider, which was an interesting concept for something that happened in 1870 or whatever.
Yeah, that movie was something else. Dragon Ball Z. Nice. For $20. That's pretty good. Thank you for the 20. Been watching Platoon's Acolyte series. I love the analysis, but I insist y'all watch the good bits of Visions. Grace Randolph has no clue what she's talking about, and I'd hate for people to dismiss it because she's bad at her job.
I think it's just baked in that Grace Randolph has no idea what she's talking about. But
Grace.
That's her whole thing, though. Like the whole point is that she doesn't know what she's talking about.
I don't know what I'm talking about, but I do talk out of the side of my face.
Visions is the animated show, right?
Yeah, it's like several animated shorts. I think the different studio does each one. Grace, I think, implied they were canonical, and they are not, which might be why it's come up. I haven't seen them. I don't have time, and if they're not canonical, I doubly don't have time because they're not going to lead me to anything. So
that's probably accurate. Content factory, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she's just handed a script and told to read it at this point. That's some whoever her sponsor is or whatever.
I'm going to get to the Acolyte specific super chats so that I don't have to think about the show until the next episode comes
until
out.
Tomorrow when it comes
tomorrow. You can do this all over again. Spectre Von Baron again for $5. Thank you. I think the biggest tragedy of this particular show is that I can see a lot of potential in most of these actors and it's wasted. Not Amandla. No, that would be key to leave out is her because she's terrible. What's odd about her too is she had a lot more expression in her own shitty fucking music video than she did at any point in this television show. But yeah, Master Squid Game there. I don't know what else to call him, but he's fucking fantastic.
Yeah. Lee Zhang-jai. He's the fact that he learned English for this role, I feel so bad for him. That's because it's just all it means is that he couldn't read the script before he accepted the role. That's the problem.
I think he was going to. I watched an interview where he was trying to be baited into like, as an Asian man, how do you feel being in Star Wars? Even though like he's not even remotely the first Asian person in Star Wars.
Yeah, not even close.
But he didn't take the bait, and he was just talking about how just it's Star Wars, and for him, he has to be a part of Star Wars, which in an innocent way I can appreciate. in an innocent way. Viking Gnome anime for a North Korean 20.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Grains of rice, I think we established that was.
20 caterpillars. Will this trash heap actually get a season 2?
I mean, Ahsoka did.
I mean, at this point,
Ahsoka didn't get the backlash this show did. And you watched Ahsoka. Was Ahsoka as bad as this?
In places, yes.
Ahsoka is a liked character, and these are all.
Well, that's different, right? Because Ahsoka, I think in places might even be slightly worse. It's certainly more boring. Like the Acolyte does not have people just standing there staring at each other in every scene, as like taking the place of dialogue, for example. I would have been more disappointed in Ahsoka, I think, if I really liked the character. But lots of people really like the character, and all they really want is to see the character. There's some lightsabers in it. Anakin Vader's at one point. That's good, apparently, for some reason. And Dave Filoni, it's Dave Filoni's baby as well, and he's in charge. So he has a lot of sway. So Ahsoka probably has more going for it in terms of like prospects for season 2, and that's why it got renewed. With the Acolyte, I don't know. I could see them renewing it just because, fuck it. What else have they got?
I think it will, because I feel like this is like the final form of the Force is female. And it pretty much embodies everything that they wanted it to be from the beginning, in terms of every major character that they're trying to turn into a woman. And then you have this, you know, lesbian space cult and all this stuff. I just feel like all of their messaging has hit this point here, and if they were to cancel it, it would look really bad for that whole, you know, what Kathleen Kennedy was going for. So she might just okay it. She's apparently untouchable. She might just okay it because it fits her narrative.
I think we'll probably get a sense of, like, depending on how the show ends. If the show is obvious, because they will know beforehand whether there is a prospect of it getting a second season. If the show is written to end on a cliffhanger, much like Ahsoka is, then the chances of it getting a second season are high. They don't make these decisions on the fly. Much as it seems like they do, they don't. So I guess we'll have a sense after episode 8 as to whether it will. You're probably right about the agenda. I mean, it's the kind of show they really want to make. And there's loads of time they still have to play with. You know, it's set 100 years before the prequels for a reason. So
yeah, there is so much more space for them to put in continuity errors and just break the canon and everything. And that's really, I feel like, what they're trying to do this whole time.
You know what's really interesting about that too is that this show is, like you said, it's probably the epitome of what they want. You know, like the girl boss type of deal. It's everything Kathleen Kennedy sees, Force is female type of shit. It is like the apex of that. But the show itself is so fucking bad that you don't even need to bring that up. Like, you can just sit here and actually dissect the show. It's like an entirely separate section of, it's an entirely separate conversation. Because I wouldn't even say interjecting that shit into the show is what's ruined it. I mean, all that's there, like episode 3 in particular, you are like pretty nice about the fact that Platoon, like you in particular, you're just breaking down the show as horribly as it was. But like, I had a section where I actually talked about that for quite a bit, and I'm like, no, that's the irony of the show, is that you really don't have to bring it up. It's fun to talk about because it's the meta stuff, it's the meta narrative that's circling it. But out of everything they produced, the one that is definitely what they wanted is the shittiest, most poorly written one.
Yeah, and that's the big problem with it. I can see, like, the woke stuff and whatever you want to call it. That's probably the reason the show got made, but it's not especially present in the show itself. The show has so many other things that go terribly wrong. Even the lesbian space witch stuff there's a degree of diegetic sense there at the moment, which is it's not overtly propagandistic. That wasn't my read of it anyway. There wasn't even that much to complain about along those lines. It's everything else.
No, it's just easy to make fun of. Like, it's funny to say, like, lesbian space, because that's what it is. It's fucking hilarious.
It's very surface. You don't have to go much past the surface to make the jokes. That's the crazy part about it.
Yeah.
They write themselves.
Yeah, I found with my last couple of videos, just Acolyte dedicated, is that I just have to let a lot of stuff play because it just speaks for itself. It's like, oh, that's funny. I don't have to even say anything funny. You are fucking funny. I just let it go.
The amount of times that a line will be said right after another line that completely negates what was just said, or a scene. Like the first of the examples, for the most part, came from episode 3, but my favorite example by far is in episode 4, when Jedi Master Nepotism is talking about how they're not going to tell the council because it will cause a problem and they're bound by these rules and we can't do that. And then they immediately walk to the hallway and she flips out on Saul for not following his protocols. It's like, you just said that you don't want to follow protocols. You can't then go say, hey, why didn't you follow protocols? That's my favorite example of it.
It goes even probably deeper than that as well, because, like, for all absolutely nothing happens in episode 4, the first third of the episode is just dedicated toward retconning what happens effectively in episode 2, or at least reversing the decision. Episode 2 ends and Saul's like, episode 2 begins, hey, we know where May is going. She's going to go kill Tom and Baratheon. So do you want us to come back to you first, or should we just go and stop her? And Green Bean is like, yeah, go stop her.
Go stop her.
End of episode 2 is, no, even though we know where she's going next, you have to come back because we don't make those decisions without talking about it first.
Right.
And they go back and talk about it, and
So
she says, "Hey,
fucking
how
ridiculous.
about you go and rescue the Wookiee instead of talking to me?" But that's 3 times in the space of 2 episodes. What are you? Yeah.
God, yeah, I talked about that in my fucking script too. It's like, God, I'm like that. Oh, there you go. That's another example where I was like, is this character just fucking stupid, or are they actually setting this up where she's like involved? Because multiple times I've been like, this person is deciding to break the law, like she's deciding to circumvent certain things. She's giving Saul really bad directions and contradictory ones. So I'm watching his reaction and I'm like, well, that's odd that she said that, considering just like last episode she told you to go get May, and now you shouldn't. And I was thinking, oh no, this has to be that she's just poorly written, because I'm like, is it setting something up where she's she's guiding and misdirecting people, and she's involved with the fucking zipperhead guy. But
that would be smart. That would actually be good writing, and they don't.
Right,
they can't
but
be
that's
having
how
that.
bad the show is. That I'm just like, oh no, it's just Goofy, and no one's paying attention to how.
Oh,
this
that would be
comes
great
off
if
when
Goofy showed up, because it is a Disney property. If Goofy showed up, that would just
a
sum it all
Goofy
up.
Scream made a Goofy Scream made an appearance, or an
Did
audible
it
one
really?
rather, in my last video.
Oh,
Yeah,
I thought you meant I thought you meant in the episode.
No,
I'd be
no.
like, no way.
No, okay, so when the zipperhead guy he runs away for a second, I don't remember why, to like get something, and then he comes back, and May's set up that fucking, the goofy ass, I saw this in a movie once, trap where you it's the rope and you have to step in the perfect 2x2.
The snare
He has to be running in the exact same spot that she set the trap, that's like 1 foot by 1 foot in diameter. And as soon as he goes up, it's the Goofy Scream, the Yahoo.
That's pretty good. I like that.
Weakest link 41 for $9.99. Disney can't admit failure with Star Wars, not just because of hubris, but because they've infused their ideology with the content. To admit a creative failure would also be admitting to an ideological one. Yeah, that's a interesting point, and I would completely agree too. That's kind of what I'm wondering is going to happen with the shift in, like, for the MCU. You guys are probably bigger Star Wars fans. I've kind of got involved because of Marvel, but it's the same idea there. What are they going to do? They're shifting away, or they're shying away from the ideological stuff by having Deadpool and Wolverine, the safest bet possible, be the standalone MCU release of 2024. So what are you going to do when the ideological, I don't know, they have to get rid of the characters or rewrite the characters. And I don't think that's possible. Like, look at the DCU, nothing to do with ideological content or anything. But when Zack Snyder started the DCU, no one really liked the way Superman or Batman were really portrayed. And you can't really shift. You can't do a tonal shift like that in the franchise. Like, the only answer eventually is going to be to completely reboot the entire universe, because the characters just had a really bad foundation. And so characters that are ideologically driven, or that have that baked into them, like this movie version of like Captain Marvel and all this trash, you're just going to have to completely get rid of the characters or reboot it. We already saw that with like DC. Hey, Kira for $5. Another problem is that every other scene was stolen from other movies and shows that Headlamp saw and just stitched them together. Yeah. I think I saw Robot Head's video earlier today, and I think he said something like that, of just like, it's like they saw scenes in a movie before, and that's what they're deciding to put in now. So like every Star Wars, when episode 1, when May walks in and confronts Carrie-Anne Moss's character, it's like, this is supposed to be an original television show, but of course it's a bar scene in a Star Wars movie. Never seen that before. Wolfsbane for $4.99. In the EU, anything made of cortosis is usually regulated to the super rich due to its rarity. Frick also had this problem and being hard to manipulate.
Yeah, but they burned all of the EU, so we need to reestablish all of that, and we haven't.
So are they using the EU as like a graveyard? Like it doesn't exist and they can go and pick from it what they like, and whatever's
exactly
in these shows now is lore.
Pretty much, yeah. They're just picking and choosing. So I think the reason they did it was in order to be free to tell whatever stories they wanted to tell. Their stories turned out to be shit, and so they got desperate and they've gone back and started trying to lift bits and pieces where the work has already been done. Partly for key jangling purposes, partly because the work's already been done, partly because there's an existing fan base for it, and there was a bunch of ideas there which it turns out shouldn't have been relegated to begin with. But again, I'd go into this in the last video. There's chains of contingency between seemingly like isolated instances of EU canon material. You can't sometimes just bring one thing back without bringing everything around it back, because if you do that, it doesn't work, because the stuff around it is what substantiates it and grounds it and gives it its mechanic. So it's kind of the worst of both possible worlds, really. Either leave it all gone or keep it all in. Don't get rid of all of it and then start trying to cherry pick.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. We do have some more super chats, but I had another subject to bring up too along the lines of the MCU. Is the fact that Kevin Feige said that the Fantastic Four is going to be set in an alternate universe outside of the mainline MCU. I thought that was...
Why not?
It's the only idea that can work, and my gut reaction was I hate that. I hate
which bit was set outside of the thing again?
So the Fantastic Four movie,
is
going to be set outside the mainline MCU universe.
It's also going to be a period piece.
It's going to be a period piece. It's going to be set in an alternate universe, obviously, to connect eventually with the mainline MCU.
Oh, but because that means nothing in the multiverse saga. Then that's fucking pointless. Why even? Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, I don't really understand either, because it's... I think it's a telltale sign of what they're going to eventually do, which is so in the comic books in 2015 they did an updated version of Secret Wars, and what essentially happened was they had two comic book universes running side by side for the last like 15 years, and one was getting overly convoluted, and the mainline one was already unbelievably convoluted. So what they ended up doing was doing the Secret Wars like 9-issue special series with all the tie-ins and all this jazz, and combined the two universes essentially into one new narrative. So I feel like that's kind of the direction we're heading here.
They basically ripped off the... Well, they were essentially trying to rip off they were trying to rip off the Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is exactly how DC did it back in
the 80s.
Yeah, it was like the early 80s. And because they had the same problem where they had Earth 1, Earth 2, and 3, and 4, and they had multiple versions of different characters, 2 different kinds of Green Lanterns, 2 different kinds of Flashes, and they had to figure out a way to get them all into one world. So they essentially went almost beat for beat with that.
Yeah, I think it could possibly work. I appreciate the fact that they want to keep it kind of going forever, where it's like you never want Tony Stark's death to not mean anything, but they also want the MCU to live on forever. I mean, that's their plan. Not if it's necessarily going to be pulled off, but that's their plan. So if you're going to do that, you still want things to matter that happened. But you also can't have a fucking massively convoluted story, because people just drop off. Like, it's fine when you're doing Avengers 2, even Avengers 3 and 4. But at that point, there were already 20 plus movies. And now all that bullshit, all the baggage from the TV shows that nobody even fucking watched or likes. I think it kind of lets us know what they're going to do, which is reset and reboot everything eventually with Secret Wars, maybe drop all that baggage. Maybe that would be their way of dropping all of the, the woke shit. But that absolutely won't happen. But I do think it'll be the reason to bring back like Captain America again. All these characters that we did like.
No, Let's not do that. They're dead. Leave them alone.
And they won't even know. They will be different versions, I bet. Like
yeah, they won't be played by the same actors.
No, I think it'll be a whole new MCU, but it'll be the same MCU. It'll be like the comics, what they tried to pull off, which they really didn't pull off very well.
Yeah, but exactly, how are comics doing these days? Are they selling incredibly well?
Yeah. Yeah. Even DC tried to pull this in 2011. Marvel tried to pull it in 2015. I'll say though,
that was really just
Secret Wars that it wasn't Secret Wars that killed the Marvel's comic books.
No. They were already well on the decline. I would say that right around when they decided to make the Ultimates universe was when they were starting to see the huge decline in their sales. But Secret Wars 2015 was pretty much just a way to make Miles Morales the main Spider-Man for a little while too. That was like that was one of the processes that they went through. Yeah. There was a few things for it, but that was one of the main ones.
Yep. See, the interesting thing. Sorry, go ahead, Platoon.
Oh, it just reeks of like this lack of creative vision. Like there is a reason that characters like Iron Man, Captain America are so popular, and it's not because that's what their names are, and it's not even just because that's what they look like. It's because there was work done to turn them into characters people liked. Continuing to bring this back into like a multi-dimensional thing where any number of new people can inherit the mantle of these characters because we can't actually be bothered to make anything cool and new is probably the reason it will all end up fucked. Okay, you can put any number of people in Cap's suit, but you're just now beating a dead horse. We've had that story. It was really good. Make a new one with somebody else and turn them into the next Captain America, not by calling them Captain America, but by creating a new idea. That's sensible.
One of the
you did the last time that worked. Start small, build up, create a contained story. Don't keep making everything bigger and then desperately trying to cram it all together and then failing and then partitioning universes. No, end the story and then start a new story. That's not impossible to do.
So many people throughout the comics have been Captain America. There's been a bunch of different versions. Steve Rogers is always the main one in everybody's eyes, but the second most well-received one of all time is Bucky. When he went from Winter Soldier to Captain America. That's a great arc it was written by Ed Brubaker, which is one of the best writers in modern comics. And they just fucking skipped it. They skipped it because we got to get, Falcon right there. Because now currently Falcon is Captain America in the comics. And they wanted to streamline right to it. They wanted to skip right over that. And that was their problem. They had the person right there, an actor who's well-liked in the role, a character who most people did enjoy, and was in the line of succession for the mantle, and they fucked it up.
Well, the most important one as well being that was the natural choice that the story they told would lead to.
It's his best friend.
Best friend, yep. The person who's fought with him for decades at this point. The guy who knows most about him. You would obviously choose him if you had that choice, rather than the guy who occasionally shared a scene with him. Yeah, and that was it.
This is the guy that I used to lap around the reflecting pool when we were
right. The guy who actually has fucking superpowers for one. Yeah. It might be useful as Captain America.
And the super soldier would be a good
actual
choice
super soldier. And the character who can actually use the mantle as a redemption arc. He really could, because that's the thing about Bucky was. That's the thing I appreciated about him was, compared to someone like Reva or May, who, committed murder.
Atrocities.
Yeah, they committed atrocities. They murdered, but they didn't feel bad about it. They just felt bad about, whatever trauma they had experienced. In Captain America's Civil War, one of the best lines in the entire movie, in my opinion, was when Cap and Bucky were having that conversation at about the beginning of the third act. They had escaped the airport, and Steve Rogers was telling Bucky that it was, obviously it's not okay what happened, but like that wasn't you. It wasn't him. All those all those killings, all the death wasn't him. And Sebastian Stan played that really well because he was very quiet and he just turned to him and he said, "Yeah, but I did it." Like he still knows, he still felt it. And then later on too, when Tony asks, do you even remember them? And he says, "I remember all of them." He's a tortured fucking character. He's a tortured character. And it's set up for him to take the mantle, to have to prove himself again. And it really is a good example of how, like, the meta, the current ideological culture is what selected that character at the end of Endgame.
Andrew actually has a good comment in the chat, which almost lines up exactly what you just said at the very end there, and about Bucky. I don't know if you want to highlight it, but
yeah, I think that is probably true, but they could have done a few things to adjust that.
That's one of
War, or
that's one of the things that the Ed Brubaker run addresses. It's already pre-written. They address that he struggles with following such a virtuous person as being a non-virtuous person who's done terrible things. That's already been written for them. They could have just used it.
Not only is it already been written by the sounds of things, but I would actually say that is the ideal place to start with your next Captain America run. That's a powerful, like that is the beginning point of the arc that you can send the character on. That's a brilliant place to start. And also, if the Falcon and the Winter Soldier tried to do something equivalent, because it has fucking Falcon sort of umming and ahhing about whether he wants to take the shield or not, and whether does he agree with what it stands for, and like the doubt thing is what they went with anyway. So it's not a counterpoint to him playing the part. It's actually just a more personal version of the story they ended up sort of going with in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because there's a personal sense of inadequacy there, which you can then build on. And you can do social commentary stuff with that as well. This is a guy who is used to fight against the country that he now stands for. If you want to do a social strife and a mutual suspicion arc, then you can begin with him not believing he's worth it, the country itself turning against him, not thinking he's worth it because he was with the Russians for such a long time. There's so many fun things you can do with that as your premise, and they didn't. They went with generic because it's popular modern race allegory. Hooray. We haven't got enough of those.
Yeah, it's, man, that's what's so funny about all that shit you see so much. Like, I think it's 60% of commercials. There is some ridiculous number of commercials, like, actually feature people of color. Or I think it's actually specifically Black people, which is like 13% of the population. So it's like, I understand by every company, you know, per selection, like, oh, well, we got to be, you know, we have to be diverse because that's what's culturally important right now, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no one at the time understands that it's when everyone does it, like, you're not fucking special. Like, literally everyone's doing that now. Everyone does it. But
it's like the strong woman thing comes in as well. You know, every time you see,
that too.
Like the Marvels coming out, and it's like, well, what about this did you think was new and innovative and that desperately needed to be done? We've seen it so many times. It's boring. It never works. You're not bold. You're not innovative. Stop it.
Yeah, that's what's so fucking funny about it. It's every time someone does it, they think they're the first one to do it. Or that,
it's the isolation,
sort of revolutionary thing.
It's the isolation of Hollywood, or in this case, commercial producers that don't actually interact with real people. And that's why I always laugh whenever you hear a commercial, we interviewed real people. Like, they're implying that they are not, like, they don't have any connection to real people at all. Like, it's
fucking wild. Garth Knight for $9.99. I think we all know what Star Wars is now, and it has been post The Last Jedi. I just hope y'all will stick around to make fun of it, of its new identity. I do wonder when it will lose its monetary benefit from YouTube cats.
You know, I wasn't sure if it was going to be good for me, and it was really good for me. So it was my most successful video ever. I was like, I'll give it a shot. Like, I thought the same thing though. Like, when is this going to, like, when do people officially not give a shit anymore? Because right now we're still at that, I don't give a shit to watch it, but I'm going to watch people make fun of it. Eventually you will get past the point where it's, people don't even want to watch that anymore. So that's a good question.
Yeah. There will be like there's an arc to this for sure. It's like, you love something and then they fuck it up, and you give it a shot and you just see where it's going, and then you start hating it, and you like when it's being validated and you're watching other people hate it. And eventually you just kind of get apathetic and you just don't even.
I think that's kind of where the MCU is now, in that latter part, where Star Wars had way more momentum from years that, and more people built up. The MCU, whereas there was always comic fans, that build up of this massive group of casual people going to watch these movies was relatively new in the greater scheme of things.
Yeah.
So
Mega Spidey Man for $5 fake. Ford's playing President Ross in Captain America 4 after William Hurt's death. Is it hypocritical to recast him but not do the same for Black Panther? Yes.
Especially when you say that when the actor said he wanted to recast, yes.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and you know what's really sad too? Like William Hurt he was a great actor. And he's an Academy Award winning actor. Fantastic career. Yeah, there's no reason to do one thing and not the other. So
how much money do you want to put on it that Harrison Ford plays him as a grumpy, depressed, miserable old man?
How much money would you have to put on that to actually win if you were right?
I think the odds are just evens at this point. You can never make money with that bad.
Yeah. Again, my cha for a California $5. Here's a recommendation for a comic to read: the adaptation of No Longer Human by Junji Ito. Did I say that right? Original novel by Osamu Dazai. Even Lil Platoon might like it. I'm sorry if I mispronounced any of those.
There's still some good comics out there. They're just not being produced by Marvel and DC. That's the thing.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't. I have a nice little collection of like indie comics and even Image comics.
Well, yeah, because Image is they're just a distributor.
They're a distributor. They are indie, but they're third major publisher. It's kind of cool. Thank you for the super chat. Darius White for $10. Studios only get 25% of the box office in China. Yeah, I think I said they got 30. So it's even worse. Also, they don't want imitation Chinese representation, but American what?
Americana writ.
Oh, sorry. I just said American, but Americana writ large. USA. Also, strangely enough, the Chinese love Will Smith. Do they? It was like when America was super racist in the 60s, but everyone loved OJ. Look what happened.
He got an in memoriam at the BET Awards recently, I saw.
Really?
Yeah. I was like, okay.
Sure. I mean, shit. Never found guilty. What are you gonna do? Huh. Elsie Lappin for $5. Best movie tie-in fast food merch I ever got were the glass mugs for Batman Forever. Fuck yes, those were awesome. They had those at McDonald's.
There used to be so many good
to this day.
There used to be so many good tie-ins, and they were like things that people would still use. Like
real glass mugs, dude.
Yeah.
Do you imagine getting a glass mug as merch at McDonald's? That is a 90s thing. It would be
almost every
8-ounce plastic cup now with Batman's shitty printed picture on it.
And almost every major movie had a McDonald's burger, whatever it was, always had a, like you said, the menu tie-in. It was a burger or something specific to that, and it was
rodeo burger, dude. Wild West. Wiz Nilly P for $10. Thank you. Platoon, have you seen Robot Head's Acolyte analysis? It's impossibly similar to yours, possibly plagiarized. Question mark.
Impossibly similar. That's curious. No, I haven't. I, as a rule, don't watch other people's reviews of things I'm reviewing until I finished because I don't like stealing people's points. So I don't know. But Robot Head's good. I'm sure he would be well above anything like that.
Still convinced he's an Australian psyop and doesn't actually exist.
Yeah, I noticed in the YouTube community, like what I do is the exact same as you. Like I don't like watching any other people's stuff, and then by the time I'm done with the video, making my own, and talking about it on streams and shit, like I don't even want to watch anyone's videos.
I have like a set group of people that I check out after the fact, but we were talking about it backstage before the show. That's exactly what I do. I have a feeling it's probably about 90% of people do that because if you are taking the craft seriously, you don't want to watch other people's stuff only because you don't want to be influenced by what they're saying.
Yeah. It's nice going back after the fact because with something like the Acolyte as well, some of the issues are so glaring. It would be surprising if multiple people didn't make the same points. But like my usual thing is I'll finish an Acolyte video and then I might go back and watch, say, EFAP breaking down that particular episode and just like, oh, they found that bit. That's a bit I missed. That's a bit they missed. That's a nice thing to do. That's fun. But with an ongoing thing like the Acolyte, it's actually even hard to find any time to do that, just because by the time I finish one, the next episode's out, and then I have to get right back to it again.
That's why I like my format, where I get to do multiple episodes in one video. I like it.
Yeah, if you choose the normal person format and not the 1.5 to 2 hour video format, like some fucking psychos I know, you can do that. That's what I do too. 15 to 20, 25 minutes tops. You know what I mean? I think that's what's
somebody
really
has to fit the niche.
I think it's so cool though. Like they're completely different styles of videos because honestly, if I make a 15 or 20-minute video on something, it'll still take me like 2 or 3 days to write it and everything, like to actually write it. And I'm only writing, like 3,000 to 5,000 words. Platoon is just like fucking blasts through it. It's
the writing bit's the quick bit for me. It's the rest of it.
That's the slow bit for me. That's yeah.
Well, also when you're trying to keep it shorter, you have a tendency to overwrite and then trim back. Whereas Platoon probably has less of that problem, and he's actually probably being like more. What more can I get into this? So there is
no,
that...
it's still the opposite problem.
So the opposite problem.
I said with the Acolyte ones because I don't want them to be really long by my standards because it will never get done in a week. I will sit there thinking like, do I need to make that point? Not really. Is that a thing I could say more about this, but I don't really need to. It's still a case of like deliberately not saying all of the things that I'd like to, just because otherwise I'd just be there for multiple months.
You just need to start writing and speaking at the same time, and then you'll just do both, and you'll get.
Yeah, I'll just do ad-lib sections. Why not?
Yeah.
Just make it up as I go along.
I always am envious of the people that like get in front of the camera and just talk for their. It's amazing. Like I'll stress over the first 30 or 45 seconds of a video for like a day, an entire day, and just like I'll write new intros and it's just a totally different process.
That's cool. The other thing about like the advantages of the long ones is that because I just do not have time to worry about what it's going to turn out as being. It's like it's the way that the guys who do like South Park, Trey and Matt, do the same thing, that they tried to write stuff in advance for about a year and found it was so stressful that they went back to doing it the day before it's due to go live because then they don't have enough time to stress about it. I'm already in the position where I'm working like a 15-hour shift on the day before the video goes out. I do not have time to go back and say, oh, I could have done that in the intro. I could have done that in the intro.
Jesus. Yeah, no, I'll stick to taking a day to write 45 seconds of video. Genma, am I saying this right? Why do I keep forgetting how to fucking say this name? Genma. Yes, I believe. For California, for sure, though. $2. Happy Canada Day. Yes, happy Canada Day, folks. Including Vex Electronica, if you're still in the chat. Melvin Deeply for $2 fake. Do you think it's worse than Obi-Wan?
I didn't actually watch Obi-Wan, just Mr. Brown's breakdowns of it, so it's hard for me to say. But it does seem
did way more damage, right? Like Obi-Wan is one of those things because disappointment tends to scale by like the potential you're wasting. Obi-Wan does so much more damage just because it's like the one opportunity you have to bring those two actors back. It is a direct tie-in. It impacts everything around it. It's characters people actually know and like, and they did that. So there's probably more individual mistakes in The Acolyte. There are a huge number of mistakes in the Obi-Wan show as well. But for the amount of potential being wasted, Obi-Wan is worse and always will be.
Yeah, I feel like Obi-Wan, you could easily forget The Acolyte ever existed, whereas Obi-Wan will intrinsically be connected to it no matter what forever. Which is why I say that's why I said I think it's worse.
And like stuff as well, the gate sequence is just famously fucking awful. The whole set piece is orchestrated around a gate which he could have just walked around, and they showed you that Vader following him down to a planet and then asking if he'd come to destroy it. It was like, what is going on? Obi-Wan leaving Vader alive at the end, which basically sets up A New Hope because that's the way they'd written it for themselves, making Obi-Wan culpable for basically every death in the OT. Yeah. That's astonishing.
Pretty amazing.
I feel like that's the line that you have been associated with the most because you say that one a lot. The how if you come to kill me. I feel like I've heard Little Platoon say that at least 100 times.
Oh, the trench coat scene someone has mentioned in chat as well. Yeah, hiding there under the trench
that's a
coat.
good one. I honestly compared the full thing, the haircut, and then the bullshit standing in for OSHA, and no one can tell. I compared that to like the trench coat thing, which is like pure fucking
Well, I
stupidity.
compared the fact that she just randomly, it was in episode 2 when she just randomly grabbed some like curtain and was like, "I'm May now. I'm gonna go ask questions." Like that was I compared that to the
I'm May
trench
now.
coat. I have no information about anything that I need to be convincing, but damn it, I'm gonna try.
Austin Powers won, says Kyle. Darius White for $10. Thank you very much, sir. Chato describes how men and women write sci-fi and fantasy. Men write details about the battles, piloting, and fixing tech. Women write about what they're wearing to the battle, poisons, relationships, and food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are group differences, men and women by and large. There's an overlap. Obviously, there are exceptions to every rule, but the rule also exists, and men and women are interested in different things, which is why it doesn't very easily go when you try and turn a thing which is very popular with one sex into a thing which is popular with the other. It's because it naturally occurred that way, and it naturally occurred that way for a reason.
Right.
Nobody's going around saying that let's insert military history into the Barbie film next. That'll work.
When I streamed with Baggage Claim, the last time I streamed with her, she was talking about how, when little girls play with, like if they're playing with like boys' toys, they make, they would make Spider-Man like go shopping and stuff. Whereas if boys were playing, they would try and integrate that character like into the story they're fabricating.
Yeah, Lego did a study on this, I think, and found something very similar when they were trying to expand the reach of their brand, looking at the ways boys and girls play with stuff. And one of the reasons girls weren't playing is that while boys had things you could use, girls didn't have things they could inhabit. And so just simply by adding more like home decor things where girls could imagine themselves building the house out as opposed to driving a truck made it way more popular. But they then used that and they just simply built a separate brand more oriented toward girls. They've since tried to have it both ways, and I don't think it's going quite as well for them. But yeah, like even before any socialization influence comes in, boys and girls have demonstrable differences in play styles and play interests as well. So it's only weird activists in Hollywood who seem to think that this isn't true.
Sorry, yeah, so many people asked me to put the helmet on in the chat that I finally just had to do it, but the headphones don't fit underneath it, so I can't.
Can wait, take the head. I just need to see it on just for a second then. Oh damn, it's gonna fit. Oh, fucking fits like a glove, like an OJ glove.
I have a relatively large head, so that's probably why it fits like a glove.
It turns into special guest man when he wears that.
I would totally wear it during the stream, but it won't fit over the headphones. I would need to do like earbuds, and I have like tiny inner ears, so the earbuds will just fall out. I have a big head and small ears.
Cut some holes in the side for your headphones, or would that be destroying its resale value?
I mean, I don't think it has much resale value. It's just a plastic helmet that like it's for a Disney property. They've ruined all the resale value of every collectible. I used to be like, yeah, I'm going to retire on all these Star Wars collectibles, and no, it's not happening now.
No,
I waited too long to sell.
Yeah, I don't think that you're in good shape with that plan, sir. Holy, you got a member for 16 months, Little Platoon.
Didn't even know I'd been going that long. I must be one of the first.
Slightly bridge topic. How do you all feel about Sebastian Stan playing Luke Skywalker? Too trendy, or would it have worked instead of CGI?
There was a picture of the two of them where like they did the split face thing, and he's very similar. Yeah, I think it could have worked.
In a happier old universe, the sequel trilogy would have picked up roughly where the old expanded universe did. After Return of the Jedi, a slightly older but still fairly young Luke Skywalker, played by Sebastian Stan. Just recast them all straight from the beginning. That would have worked. If you wanted then to jump forward later, you can bring the old actors back. But by jumping 30 years forward, you've just wasted all of the interesting story potential. And you've also wasted some pretty good actors who could have played those roles.
Facts. Potato for a North Korean $50. First time I saw the movie Cynic's icon, I wondered why Chris Stuckman had blue hair. Ugh. Shit. I don't know if I'll ever have blue hair again. I've had like 2 6-month stints with it, so a year total essentially. And each time I stopped because of the fact that the person burned the fucking shit out of my head, and I thought I was losing my hair. I was like, I don't know if it's ever going to grow back, and that's going to be a huge problem.
Skin tests. Like over here, if you want to get your hair dyed, you have to go to the place for a skin test like a week before you get it done if you've never had it done there before, because it's not actually supposed to burn your head.
Oh, I know it's not supposed to, and I also know why it was, because the person doing it fucking sucked at their job, and I wasn't going to my regular person, and I made a huge mistake and gave myself some trauma, and didn't want to go back. So.
It does give you the opportunity to redo your profile photo if like you don't want to ever go back to blue hair. You can like kind of use it as an excuse to redo your thing.
Difficult to do. Like when I started the channel, you don't start a YouTube channel and be like, yeah, I'm gonna start a YouTube channel and quit my job and like this is what I'm gonna do now. I was just like, well, I'll try the fucking blue hair and I'll call myself the movie cynic because I do movies. And then that those are the kind of things that you get stuck with. I don't know what to do now.
Why don't get that? You can get some pretty cool wigs. Just buy a blue wig. Not like
for every time I'm on camera,
you just put the wig on. It's really easy. My friend's mum has to wear a wig at the moment because it was like treatment for chemo and stuff. But they're really good, and you can get interesting ones.
I mean, just stick it obviously on like my favorite color. Like everything's blue. I just I don't know if the blue hair can keep coming back.
That's what I said. Just use it at like make an announcement. Be like, I'm never doing blue hair again. You can do it right here on this, and then change your profile photo, and it could be more updated. There you go.
No, fuck that. I'm googling it now. Blue wig, and I'm going to bring one when I come.
I'm actually going to encounter a situation. So like all of my little green guys I put in there, they all have a brown belt on, and I'll eventually be a black belt, hopefully, maybe, and in jiu-jitsu. So I'll have to update it. So I'll get one chance to like maybe change it around a little bit. So I have to not waste that.
I have found the perfect one already. Hold on.
So and when you come over here, we'll have to do a live BSUP, but we'll have to put like some sort of fucking filter over your face.
That would be fantastic.
God, yeah. I could just print out like a cardboard box and stick it on it.
All that shit like that.
I was gonna say just get like a cardboard version of the VTuber.
Live from Nashville, Tennessee, as we try to find the Hawk Tua girl.
This one. Why not?
That guy, you could see that the guy who was the guy who they chose for the modeling there, you could see the dead behind his eyes. Like, this is what I got.
Oh my fucking god.
This is my life now.
We got a few more super chats here. Spectre Von Baron for another $5. Thank you, sir. Any of you know about the plot of a recent game, Homeworld 3? Similar issues. A misogynist couldn't have wrote it more to their tastes.
Really? I saw it came out, but I don't know anything about the plot.
Nah, I'm not a Homeworld fan. So.
Castle Dracula for $2. Watch Saul's lightsaber will turn from blue to red. That would be fucking hilarious. Yeah, what was the thing here with the lightsabers and colors? By the way, like you have to
red
is just evil.
Well, yes. you have to bleed the crystal basically with negative emotions, and so that's how it turns red. They're not naturally occurring; they're essentially synthetic.
The funny thing is, as well, I believe that was only added to the lore relatively recently. I think it was a Filoni thing, that the lightsaber bleeding to create the red thing. So they can't even keep their own lore consistent.
That was another thing that was pillaged from the EU as well, though.
So. Mo Sislak for $19.99. Thank you very much, Mo Sislak, from The Simpsons. Relatively large head. Relative to what?
I just know because when I have to put on a hat, I'm above the halfway point on like the snaps, so I must have that's in the large section of the hat. So
And the last super chat here that we got, Tai Fung again for $1.99. Happy Canada Day. Hey, buddy, guy, pal, friend.
I like how you were like, we're gonna do all the Acolyte super chats to get them out of the way, and you're just like, fuck it, let's just get through them all.
Yeah, we just went through them all. Well, there's just like not a terrible amount of things to talk about besides the Acolyte this week. So
yeah, I mean,
I didn't go out to the theater and see anything new. So it's been kind of sitting around watching Star Wars and wrestling.
Anyone watching House of the Dragon yet, or is that still
I haven't watched this week's episode, but I watched the first two, so I need to catch up on that. It wasn't relevant to this stream event originally, so I didn't.
No, it's fine. We can keep it irrelevant to the stream. I don't think there's anything else out. The Boys season 4. Is anyone watching that? I'm not.
No. Nope. Yeah, that's honestly the three topics I had today were the Acolyte and Fantastic Four and the Captain America news, because those are the things that I know about. So,
and I don't have time to do anything except editing Acolyte videos, so I've seen fuck all this week.
Jesus Christ. We are at the 2-hour mark, so it's not too shabby.
That's like the bare minimum for
a stream,
For a stream, yeah.
This will be the shortest one we've ever done, I think.
Yeah.
Like 2 hours, yeah. NXS Gaming for an ass $2. Little Platoon, notice me.
Hello. There you go.
There you go. AJ Hawk's Toxic Finger for $5. Subbed to Dark Hour. Thanks for coming on. Cynic, it wears the wig or it gets the hose again.
Be sure to watch my first 3 episode video, because I have some great commercials in there that I made. So,
yeah, that is it for the super chats. And it's honestly, unless you guys have anything else, that's it for my topics for today. So,
yeah, I can't think of anything.
Well, shit. That's all I got. Dark Hour, thanks for coming on, dude.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
It's always fun to come on here. I don't get to do it as often now because I've been teaching jiu-jitsu classes on Monday nights, but the way that this week lined up, because I was coming back from a trip and I had requested to do it later in the week, so it worked out well.
Yeah, no, I much appreciate it. And Little Platoon, my co-host, thanks for co-hosting with me, and your mouth is agape.
I'm yawning again. Sorry. I've had a really long month.
Yeah, I know. You've been working your ass off. So probably good to cut the stream short for you, but we'll be back strong next week. And we'll have more than one guest next week. I promise. I'll shoot for 3. Swear. But yeah, so we'll see you next week. Catch Platoon on whatever fucking streams he's probably on. And
you're going to be on my channel soon for Pulp Fiction, and not this week, the following week. So
yeah, what date?
Let me pull up my schedule.
Pull up the schedule, because I'll read the super chat while you're doing that. Because of course one came in at the end, because you guys. Joe Eager for $25. Thank you. $10. Agatha will be worse than the Acolytes lesbian space witches.
Well, they're Earth-based space witches. They're Earth-based.
They are Earth-based. That's right. So they're just going to be.
Yeah, I fucked up my own joke. But you are on for July 13th. That is when I have you.
July 13th.
Yeah, we're doing Pulp Fiction, and in between there, this upcoming Sunday, actually, because it's the holiday weekend, so we're doing it Sunday instead. We'll be interviewing David Worth, the director of Kickboxer, cinematographer of Bloodsport and various other films. Has worked with Bruce Campbell. Has worked with Cynthia Rothrock, who's like the John Claude Van Damme of women. It's the best way I could put it. He's worked with a lot of really
way of putting things.
It's the best way I can put it. She does a lot. Like basically, her career arc is very similar. She was mostly martial arts films and dabbled in like other action movies as well. Yeah. But yeah, he's worked with a lot of great. And I basically just reached out to him, and he was like, "Hell yeah, I want to talk about my movies." I was like, "Okay, yeah, cool, let's do it."
Oh, that's awesome. One more super chat came in. Sushi Oishi for $5. Platoon videos always come up as recommended after I watch all of Mahler's videos before. Just wanted you to know what YouTube thought.
Yeah, That's a good several days worth of content per video.
Yep, that sounds like a
Well,
fucking just order pizza.
At this point, with the output that you're having, Platoon, Mauler's videos are going to start getting suggested after yours, because yours are you're going to have like yours are coming out way more frequently.
Yeah, there are more of mine.
There are definitely more of. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then, oh god, Rings of Power. Oh no, that's coming up.
September.
No.
You gotta get ready.
End of August, isn't it? Like August 29th or 30th.
Well, August 29th. Yeah.
Basically September at this point.
And then Agatha at the same time.
Oh fuck.
Gonna be fucking busy.
I'll probably cover Agatha because I don't really care too much about Lord of the Rings and Tolkien. Like, it's never really been my thing. Like, I've watched the movies, I enjoyed them, but it's not something that I have a lot of passion for. Whereas comics and Star Wars, I always had passion for. So it'll come off, like, it'll be coming better for me, I think, if I did Agatha.
Well, unless you guys have anything else, I think I'll be signing off and taking everyone with me. So
sounds good.
All right. Well, chat, thank you so much for hanging out. Happy Canada Day to all my Canada friends. And we will see you all.
What is Canada Day? Is that a day when everyone's just vaguely embarrassed to not be American?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everyone's happy to be in Canada's. Everyone's happy to be in America's attic. Oh, Jesus. Mega Spidey Man for $2 at the end. Thoughts on new Hellboy reboot, Crooked Man. I saw the trailer and it looks a small scale Hellboy movie is exactly what's needed if you're going to make one. I don't like the casting choice, and I think that's going to ruin the movie for me.
I didn't even know they were making this. I just found out today they were making this. So
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Okay, we're signing off. We'll see you all next week.
Bye, guys.
Wakanda forever.
That's the shaka.